Good evening, everybody. This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a very special presentation of the FCS Dynasty as seen in NCAA 2006. And yes, we do have some mods with that as well. Tonight is a very special night where the culmination of a hard journey of adversity, hard work, and dedication is going to come to fruition for 24 teams that have fought and earned the opportunity to compete for a national championship. What tonight also means is that out of the 119 teams that are in this FCS dynasty, many of those teams will see their season officially come to an end tonight in this very episode of the FCS Playoff Selection Show. And I am really excited for it. And if you are excited for it as well, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button for me, hit that subscribe button as well. And before we go into showing off what's going on with the FCS playoff bracket, let me go ahead and go over some fine details on how the FCS playoffs work. Now, for those of you that are new to this series and are not familiar with FCS football, this is how the FCS playoffs will work. Out of the 119 teams that are in this series, like I said, 24 teams will have an opportunity to compete for a national championship. Out of those 24 teams, 8 of those teams, the top 8 teams in the playoffs, they will automatically get a first round bye and move on to the second round of the playoffs. The other 16 teams, they will compete in the first round tournament, and the winner of those games will go and play up against those top 8 seeds in the second round. Now, as for how this playoff bracket is comprised, there are 2 ways to get into the FCS playoffs. For the first way that is easier to solidify your spot is you get an automatic bid, and to get an automatic bid, you have to win your conference championship, or however your conference is decided. So there are 10 bids. Even though there are 11 conferences, the Sun Belt does not get an automatic bid because there's no real FCS teams, and they will have to get in a different way if it is in their best interest. The other way to get into the FCS playoffs is by an at-large bid. There are 14 of these that are available, and they will go to the highest ranked teams that did not manage to win a conference championship over the course of the regular season. So all that is squared away. Let's go ahead, not waste any more time. Let's take a look at the top 8 seeds that will automatically get a first round bye in the FCS playoffs. So we start this FCS playoff reveal with the number 1 seed, and that is going to go to the sole undefeated team that is in this dynasty, the Georgia Southern Eagles. Finishing 13-0 and 9-0 in conference play, they have won their conference championship for the 4th time in this series, culminating in a 31-21 victory over Southeastern. So this is clearly a team that knows how to win conference championships, but can they finally win a national championship though? They were very close last year, making it to the national championship game, but falling to New Hampshire in heartbreaking fashion. Is this the year that Georgia Southern finally completes the job, and can they do it behind their senior quarterback in Ikedo Woods, who's making his final FCS playoff run? Now, that being said, there will be 23 other challengers to test Georgia Southern, and Southern is going to be one of them, garnering the number 2 overall seed in the FCS playoffs. This will be their first FCS playoff appearance since back in year number 1, and they do so just like they did back in year number 1, winning the Big 12 championship, destroying Alcorn State in the process. Now, this has been in spite of a difficult season for Justin Jones. The former number 1 prospect in high school football has actually thrown more interceptions than touchdowns. And while he was able to get away with that in the regular season, he will need to step up his play in order for Southern to go far. But this is a very good defense. This has been a team of destiny. Good luck to the Southern Jaguars as they get that number 2 seed. Following the Southern Jaguars, we have the North Dakota State Bison, who won the Pac-10 championship this year and will be the number 3 seed in this tournament. And this is a team that loves to pound it out on the ground, led by their running back Ken Anderson, who has 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns, playing in a very difficult conference this year. You're going to see that there are quite a few teams that are going to represent from that conference, but North Dakota State found a way to beat them all, and they will be the conference champ and the automatic qualifier from the Pac-10 conference. Again, North Dakota State is the number 3 seed. Following the North Dakota State Bison, we have the Eastern Kentucky Colonels, who make their second consecutive playoff appearance, once again winning the Big Ten as well. And while this isn't the most impressive offense in the world, Leon Rose is an exception to that. Their defense is suffocating. Led by their custom O'Brien on the defensive end, the linebacker has been able to garner 19 total sacks on the season. He's going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of other offenses that are in this FCS playoffs. Congratulations for Eastern Kentucky on the first round bye and the number 4 overall seed. After Eastern Kentucky, we have San Diego State getting the number 5 overall seed in this tournament, and they do so by winning the Mountain West Conference. This is the first year that San Diego State has lost in the regular season, as in the past 3 years they have been the number 1 seed, but no national championships to show for it. Although they have a very good quarterback in Ryan Vaughn, can San Diego State reverse recent trends and actually make a deep run in the FCS playoff this year? Or will we see them have yet another early exit? Only time will tell about this Aztec squad. Following the Aztecs, though, we have James Madison, the Dukes, finishing number 6 in the country, and they will have that number 6 overall seed. Champions of the ACC conference, they beat Bethune-Cookman in their final game, and they are led by a riveting passing attack. Stephen Rogers with 35 touchdowns on the year, Jody Gentry knowing how to find the end zone as well, and a underrated rushing game as well. Marcus Bryant with 700 yards in spite of being in an air raid offense. So an interesting team to watch out for, as James Madison, they have some good losses as well. Only losses are to Arkansas Pine Bluff and Big Ten Penn State, a Power 5 school. So this is a James Madison squad that can do some special things in the FCS playoffs potentially. Moving on to the number 7 seed, we have our first at-large team in this tournament, the Southeast Missouri State Redhawks, who finished with a very impressive record of their own, although they did lose to Eastern Kentucky, which was why they did not end up winning the conference championship this year. Southeast Missouri State, they are known for their defense, but having similar question marks in terms of their offense as they did back in year number 3. If Travis Johnson can bring it, they can go far. If not, they could be a team that could very much have an early exit here in the FCS playoffs. And the last team that will get a bid to the FCS playoffs is Portland State. The Portland State Vikings, they will actually make their very first FCS playoff appearance in this series. They finally crack into the field of 24, and Portland State, they represent several new teams that happen into field this year. There are 8 new teams that have made the playoffs this year. So congratulations to Portland State for being one of those squads, and I look forward for them to compete in the FCS playoffs this year, and also getting a first round bye in the process. So with the first round bye teams have now been revealed, we still haven't showed the majority of these teams that are going to be given an appearance in the FCS playoffs. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's check in on each of the first round matchups that will happen in the next episode of the FCS Dynasty. Let's do that now. So the first round matchup that we will see on the channel in the next episode will be the Southeastern Lions from the SEC Conference and the number 17 seed take on the Rice Owls, who have garnered the number 16 overall seed in the FCS playoffs. Now, Rice, they do come in with a little bit more experience. We saw them in the FCS playoffs last year make it all the way to the semifinals before being dropped by Georgia Southern. Meanwhile, Southeastern, they are going to be a first-timer. They are one of the two new teams that are making the FCS playoffs for the very first time. Both teams are pretty ranked similar, both C+ overall squads. What I'm going to be really excited about is that Southeastern offense, first the Rice defense. Whoever can really exert its will more is going to end up winning this game, in my opinion. But that being said, I expect this to be a very competitive game. But one first round game that I don't expect to be as competitive is Brown versus New Hampshire. Brown is going to go to the FCS playoffs for the third time in this series. They are the champions of the Ivy League, but they get a tough break in the bracket seeding. New Hampshire is the number 9 seed, and of course you know what they're capable of. Defending national champions, they are not messing around and finding out. Since their loss to Delaware State midway through the regular season, they have been really focused. Bruno Baggio has been playing significantly better. It'll be very interesting if Brown can find a way to keep up with all of the firepower that New Hampshire has on both sides of the football. After the Brown-New Hampshire game, we will have the Ohio Bobcats at the number 20 overall seed. They will take on the number 13 seeded SMU Mustangs, who are the automatic bid receiver from Conference USA. And they have a very fine quarterback in Jesse Young, one of the best passing attacks in college football, but goes up against a pretty hard-nosed defense in the Ohio Bobcats. They remind me a lot of Southeast Missouri State in year number 3. They have a national championship caliber defense, but can that offense of theirs be consistent enough in order to make a deep run? Their offense for Ohio will decide how far the Bobcats go in their very first FCS playoff appearance. Up next, we have Eastern Washington, who did end up receiving the number 21 seed. They will take on the Akron Zips, who will be the 12th seed in this year's FCS tournament. Now, Akron, they are having a pretty good year, 10-2, and they do so without even going to the MAC championship game. They finished second in their division behind Ohio, but Akron with more marquee wins. Meanwhile, Eastern Washington, they looked really strong in conference play. They came on late, and they were able to sneak into the playoffs 7-4, but this will be their very first FCS playoff appearance in this series. So congratulations to Eastern Washington. However, Akron has more experience and a more talented team, so I would not be shocked if Akron won this game, but a good learning experience nonetheless for the Eastern Washington Eagles in their first taste of FCS playoff action. Speaking of teams that are getting their FCS playoff experience for the very first time, the Sanford Bulldogs are also dancing for the first time in this series. They come in as number 15 overall seed and taking on a team that usually makes the playoffs, the Temple Owls, their third playoff appearance in 4 years. Temple comes in at 8-3 with a 3-game winning streak, while Sanford is on a 4-game winning streak. And while Temple is the more talented football team, they haven't necessarily played as tough competition as what Sanford has had to gone through. So while Temple is the better team, Sanford is more battle tested. It's going to be really interesting to see how this game ends up turning out in the first round of the FCS playoffs, something I'm definitely watching out for myself. But the beautiful thing about this FCS tournament this year is that no matter what happens, at least one first-time team will win their very first FCS playoff game, as these two teams are both making their very first FCS playoff appearance. We got Tennessee Martin that comes in as the number 19 overall seed, while the Sacramento State Hornets, they come in as the number 14 overall seed. Both teams have had their ups and downs, whether through injury or inconsistency, but congrats to both those teams for making playoffs for the very first time in what should be a very intriguing matchup to see how both of these teams handle a playoff atmosphere for the very first time. And for the final FCS playoff matchup that we will have representing the first round games on the channel next episode. We got Northern Arizona, the number 22 overall seed. They will take on Sam Houston State, who does end up receiving the number 11 overall seed in the FCS playoffs. Both teams also happen to make their very first FCS playoff appearance in this series. Sam Houston State having a very good year, while Northern Arizona, they got hot at the right time and gets the benefit of playing in a pretty strong conference this year to aid in their at-large bid playoff appearance. Northern Arizona did get that final at-large bid. Should be a very competitive game for both teams, and I'm very excited for how this game will go down. Both teams are similarly ranked. So with all 24 teams now officially revealed, as well as the playoff matchups that we will see in the first round, this is what the full bracket is going to be looking like here in season number 4. Now, for those of you that are wondering, I got some questions in the comments section as well as in the Discord. There will be a playoff bracket challenge once again for the FCS playoffs. So how that will work and how I typically set it up is that I give you the opportunity to fight for custom players that are typically only available for the channel members that sponsor this channel, which, by the way, if you're interested in being a channel member, make sure you go ahead, check that out in the description. And obviously you don't need to be a channel member to support my content, but all proceeds to the channel membership program do directly go towards things in the channel, like being able to get NCAA 12, for example, or this PC that is working off of the FCS Dynasty, what you see on your screen right now. So it goes to things like that. Nothing goes to me personally, it goes to your enjoyment directly. That being said, who wins the bracket challenge this year will get an OG tier level prospect. That's my $5 memberships, and those are usually true freshmen that are in that 80 to 85 overall range. So very good players that have a legitimate shot at going to the NFL. For the person that finishes in second place in the bracket challenge this year, they will get a day 1 tiers level prospect, and those players, they come in 75 and 79 overall as a true freshman. Still very good players right away, have a chance to get playing time, and these are also players that they're for my $2 membership program. So if you're interested in the channel membership program, make sure you go ahead and check that out in the description. And above all, if you're interested in joining the bracket challenge, make sure you go ahead, check out the link that is going to be in the pinned comment section that will be a part of this specific YouTube video shortly after it is finished here on the live premiere. So make sure you keep an eye on that, and I hope I see you guys there. I love to see your guys' predictions. And with that being said, with 24 teams making it, not every good team can get in there. So we'll go ahead and take a look now at some of the teams that are going to have a serious problem with being left outside the playoff bracket this year. So we've seen the 24 teams that are going to be revealed in the FCS playoffs. We have also seen the entirety of the playoff bracket and what's going on with the playoff challenge for year number 4. Let's go ahead and take a look into the AP Top 25 one last time to see a few of the teams that were snubbed out of an FCS playoff spot. And we have to start it out with the number 11 team in the country, Western Carolina. The Catamounts, they had a great season this year. They finished 9-2 with a 6-2 conference record, but unfortunately, they are still under NCAA probation, so they were not eligible to go to the FCS playoffs this year. So a tough break for the Catamounts. Those restrictions do get lifted up in year number 5, but for this year, their season ends at 9-2. But there are 2 teams in particular that just very painful. So you guys see Northern Arizona, they were the last team to be accepted into the FCS playoffs. They got that final not automatic bid, but they got the last of the at-large bids, right? Arkansas Pine Bluff was right under them, just 30 votes short of getting into the playoffs. They are going to miss out on their very first FCS playoff appearance. They are the last team out, but they still had a good year, 7-4 with a 4-4 conference record. Unfortunately, the Golden Lions, their season is going to be done, and we will have to wait a little bit longer for Arkansas Pine Bluff's very first FCS playoff appearance. Another top 25 team that was relatively close this year is South Carolina State. The ACC Atlantic Division was not very good this year. Nobody from the Atlantic Division made it to the FCS playoffs this year. They finished number 25 in the final regular season poll, and they were also one of the last teams to get cut, just narrowly missing out on an FCS playoff appearance. But now we have seen the 24 teams that will take part in the FCS playoffs, and starting next episode, we will start to narrow down that field. Should be a fun one, and I hope you guys are really excited for all of that. If you are, make sure you go ahead and smack that like button for me. Hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand spanking new to the channel. This is John J Gaming on the mic signing off, but I'm hoping you're all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.